I think everyone needs to consider, I said, I think everyone needs to consider whether or not Mark is delusional when he says that everyone's blessed by my being here. That's a minority opinion, I think, in a lot of places, but I appreciate everyone letting me attend by Zoom. I've got some number of things we want to talk about with regard to the league and the meeting and other things, but if you've got a question, just ask. Interrupt at any time. There's no topic that's sacred other than how much Mark is getting paid every month by the league. As Mark mentioned, there's a board meeting coming up and starting on Thursday, the committee meetings, and then the actual board meets on Friday and Saturday. The first thing I think we want to talk about is Mark's request that this conversation be about sunshine and roses. As I mentioned, he's delusional. The league is at current times losing membership at a rate of 2,000 plus per month. This is based upon the change in membership numbers since last December. You can go back further, but the numbers stay the same. After the cyberware attack and the loss of the system, the membership numbers are a little bit shaky right now because the system's not up. But the and by the way, if you lose audio, let me know. But the trend line is clear. Since summer a year ago, we're losing members at a rapid rate, and it is too rapid to consider as being caused by silent keys. It's actual loss of memberships. The finances of the league have been impacted by a change in the market for printed publications, for printed advertising and digital advertising. We're projected to lose perhaps as much as $1.8 million for the coming fiscal year. Everyone's trying to come up with programs to change the financial position, but there are no obvious programs right now that will reverse that completely. The league is not in danger of not being able to pay its bills because we have a large endowment, part of which is available for operational expenses, and that endowment is invested with professional managers, and it produces enough profit every year. Profit's probably not the accurate term. Produced enough in revenue return that it supplements our revenue income. So we're not in any danger of not being able to pay Mark's salary, although we can consider whether we ought to pay it. But in coming up with the board program, there are two proposals that I've made to try and alter the status of certain programs and to provide a source of income for the league. If any of you are into hunting, fishing, you may have heard about a website called Midway USA. It, along with Brownells, is one of the two largest online suppliers of sporting goods, firearms, ammunition. Potterfield and his wife started a program many years ago, about 20 years ago, to provide a means of raising money for the NRA. His company was one of the first to implement what's known as a roundup program. If you go to their website and you buy something, say $25.25, their software will, when it gives you an invoice, will automatically ask you, do you want to round up to $26? And it states that that 75 cents will be donated to the NRA. Donating a penny, 25 cents, 70 cents has resulted in almost $23 million in donations to the NRA. Since Potterfield started there with Midway, other companies and charities have adopted this program. 9 years ago, I talked to the major vendors, major amateur radio vendors, and asked them if they would be willing to implement that roundup program and the proceeds would go to some program for the league. All of them that with whom I spoke said yes. In fact, one of them I will not mention, but he is the lead for one of the largest online providers. Said, "Why the hell didn't you do this before?" When this was presented to the Administration and Finance Committee, to the then CEO and the other officers, they killed it. They wouldn't do it. And this was back in 2015, before our current CEO and current officers. So it was never implemented. But if you go to a grocery store, you go to any number of online businesses, you may very well find that they will offer you the opportunity to round up. I think CVS is doing this. I'm not sure it's doing it nationwide, but they are in Texas. And the charity is different. You never know which charity you're going to be promoting. How much they raise, they haven't disclosed, but it's free, easy money to pick up. If you look at Midway, they've actually gotten very smart about it. If you go to your invoice and it says round up for 75 cents, it then automatically gives you an option. And it says, would you like to round up for $1.75, $5.75? It's a slick program. It's no effort on the part of the company except to manage their software. I've been in discussions for the past several weeks with the current CEO, David Minster, with Roderick, the president. Where it stands at the moment is that the league is waiting for our tax advisors to confirm that if we implement it, it will not cause a tax problem for the league. I'm pretty certain I know the answer to that, since every other charity in the country is using this type of program. If you want to ask how much it will produce, 9 years ago, the estimate would produce 250,000 a year, give or take. Yeah, but it wasn't implemented, so we've missed a couple $1 million over the past 9 years. The other program that I've proposed deals with the Law Book of the World. If you're doing DX and contesting, you're probably using it. It is a flagship program for the league. It was started out actually as kind of a hobby program, but it turned into something that's extremely important to the membership. Half the users of the Law Book of the World, I think, are overseas, and they don't contribute to the support of the program. That's not saying anything bad about them. It's just the way the program's been set up. The league has never learned how to monetize Law Book of the World. On any given year, we break even on it. Other years, we've lost $250,000 running it. But it is old software. In fact, the software underlying, ask Mark Klein about it. He knows what the software looks like. It is no longer supported. When we were hit the ransomware attack, the concern was, first, was the data impacted? It was not. What about the software? The software we thought we were going to lose. And since it's now supported, we weren't certain we could get copies of current, the most recent programs. The software wasn't damaged. We didn't have to worry about it, but it is a single threaded program. Ask Mark, he's the expert on software, but it means it cannot process a large amount of data at one time. It's missing features that we would like. If you go to World Radio League and look at their logging program links to POTA. Ours does not. It will take a major rewrite to fix that. The league, did I mention, is projected to lose $1.8 million this year? It doesn't have the money to fund it. Estimates from inside the league are that it would take $1 million and 3 years to rewrite Law Book of the World. If you're looking at Mark, he's probably got his hand on his forehead and maybe chuckling, because we've had this conversation. It won't take that long. The cost is based upon hiring people in-house to do it. What I have proposed, back up, several years ago, I'm thinking that there's a better way to do it. I started talking to DX and contest clubs, including the Oklahoma DX Association. And we went all the way out to Willamette Valley in the Northwest. The question I posed was this. The situation was, we don't have enough money to fix it, and it needs to be rewritten to be more efficient and add features for the members. Since we don't have the money, if we were to ask you to donate money, would you do so? Under the following conditions. We'll tell you what the new features are before we ask you for money, or as we ask you for money, and we will tell you how much we need to raise and the time limit we will impose for raising the money. If we are unable to raise the amount of money that we believe we need, we'll give you your money back. If we raise all the money, then we keep it and write Logbook of the World. It can be done with professional programmers. And Mark, chime in on this if you disagree. If we hire the right project managers and we hire pros, we contract it out, it can be done within a year. And Mark, you've got a different opinion, raise your hand, say something, but you put enough brute force into it where the people know what they're doing, it can be done. Which means that if the number is 1 million, and I'm just using headquarters number for the moment, that means it wouldn't cost us any money to do it, and we would have a far more functional, beneficial Logbook of the World program. What has not been considered in the past is how do you keep that program maintained? What I found out in talking to DX and contest clubs across the country is if we ask them to pay a maintenance fee per year, $1, $5, $10, everyone went, yeah, because no one can afford to send QSL cards for $1, $5, or $10 a year. The number of accounts rounded off are 189,000 Logbook of the World accounts. Now I realize that Mark is particularly challenged on math, but if you give him a calculator, he'll multiply those numbers and give you anywhere from 900,000 at $5 to 1,890,000 per year, which would be operational funds for maintaining Logbook of the World and the league. These proposals are presently being discussed with the board, or I'm discussing with the board and with management. The question is whether or not we can get support to implement it. I don't have an answer until after the board meeting. The Roundup program, I think, will be determined whether we do it or not by the end of the board meeting also. Anyone got any questions about either of these proposals, objections, complaints? Oh, come on, y'all making this way too easy.
No, they're all asleep. They're good. They're just fine.
Hey, Mark, I'd ask a question.
He's got a question here.
I do.
Wait. No.
Oh, okay.
That way he can hear you.
Okay.
Hold it down here.
Hi, John. I'm James Ergenbright, KJ5HFM, and I'm a newbie in. Had my license in the 80s and kept it up in the 2000s and let it go, and now I'm back in again, starting to get going with it. So I'm coming in new. What really is this program going to do for me? And I don't mean that me like the world seems to be, but for us as an amateur radio community, what does this program really do for us? And the benefits long term, is it going to continue to serve the community?
Which program?
Logbook of the World.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, that's a fair question. If you look at the current membership, which the last number that we saw as of last week is 122,179 as the end of November. I spoke to a long-term director yesterday. He thinks the number is about 120. The decline in membership should concern everyone. But the answer to your question is, what will it do for you? Half of those members are not users of Logbook of the World. At 189,000, just round off, half are US users, half are foreign, and of the half US, probably 60% of those are league members. How does that benefit you if you're not using Logbook of the World?
John, you might back up a little bit and just go over what Logbook of the World is.
I'm sorry, say that again. I couldn't understand you.
What is Logbook of the World?
Oh, okay, that's fair. I thought everyone knew, but it's a program created about 12 years ago to match contacts. You can send someone a QSL card and they can send one back and confirm your contact. Logbook of the World does it electronically. It's also tied to the award system for the league. If you work all states, and can prove it, then you get a worked all states award. If you've worked all zones, if you work all states on multiple bands, if you work, you get the Century Club, you make 100 country contacts as an award. The awards are based upon you. If you want an award, you do have to be a member, and there are some fees attached to it. Those fees go to fund the league. Those fees aren't enough, obviously. As I said, the Logbook program has never been monetized correctly. So any money that is developed or received through the program goes into the operating account of the league. Those operating accounts pay for every program, every benefit the league offers. Monies that are shared with clubs, monies that are for areas programs, monies that are for teachers institutes. If you go down a list of things that the league does, some of that cost is paid for by monies from Logbook of the World. Not all of it, and not enough. So if you don't use Logbook of the World, does it directly benefit you? No. Does it indirectly benefit you by providing money to keep the league functioning and alive? Yes. Some of that money is used for spectrum defense. We have an FCC council who is really good, who monitors the FCC proceedings, tries to make certain that we are adequately represented, and protects the FCC from giving away spectrum, which we can talk about in a minute if you want. There's a major push in Congress, and has been for almost a decade, to monetize radio frequencies. We don't own them. They let us use them. They owned by the government. And if you can sell a few hertz of bandwidth or frequencies for $1 billion, it's more than we're paying. And there are major efforts to sell off, particularly frequencies above 6 meters. So any money that comes in a Logbook of the World goes into operations, and it pays for the FCC Council in DC. It pays for efforts of the league to contact people in Congress, and it pays for, it has been paying for the legislative program, which we'll come to at the end in just a little bit. So pick a program, pick a benefit. It helps. It helps pay for printing QST. Well, we're not printing anymore, are we? But it does pay for producing QST on the air, NCJ, QEX. It pays for the writing and publishing of the books that we've offered to members. So if you don't use Logbook of the World, that's okay. But those who do contribute to benefits that do go to you indirectly. Was that an adequate answer? Did I do well enough on that?
Ask one more question associated with grant processing. There's a lot of money that goes out for grants, and not all of them are really good ways to spend the money, but this would be a real good one. Is that a possibility?
The answer is probably no. There are a lot of federal grants. I have been arguing with people at headquarters that we should make a very proactive effort, assign someone to looking for federal grants. The grants would not pay for a private use program like this, but there are grants that we believe would provide funds to the league to pay for educational programs and training of all kinds. Mm-hmm. But there's been no effort that I can see over the past decade to do that. But for what they would consider a hobby program, no, there are no funds to do that. It's a great idea, but unfortunately the federal government hasn't decided to benefit us that way. They will give you money to build a wind tower, but not for writing programs. But it's a good question. Any other questions, or did I explain what the benefit of this well enough to make sense? Mark, silence is not an answer. That's a yes or no. Help me out here. Did we lose audio?
Well, we got you. I don't know
Okay,
if
good.
you
No one
got
responded, so I couldn't tell.
You're still there.
Okay.
They may have all fallen asleep.
Any other questions about the funding before I go any further?
Let me see, can you hear me now?
Say again, sir.
Can you hear me now? Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
You got a little echo, but yes, I can.
Okay, question from David Long is he likes the idea of improving the software with the upgrade. Is there a plan to also promote the tool toward expanding the user base? Folks that do and do not know that the features are.
If I understood the question, is there any part of what I'm talking about that would be used to educate people about the availability of Logbook of the World and its benefits?
Correct.
Yes, that would be part of it. If you know what it is, you know what it is. And if you don't, you don't. But the league hasn't put any money into that. If we're raising money to rewrite it, it will be a major program because we will have to explain to the members why we're asking for donations, what it can be used for. That's one of the reasons to rewrite it, so that it offers other benefits other than just the limited ones it does now. But yes, in order for this to work, and this has been a major point of discussion of the league, it can't be done by sending letters to Mark Klein or Mark Clayton going, "Hi, give us money." This only works if it is a full court press and we have people showing up and harassing, like me showing up here and asking people for donations. But that effort to raise the money will also broaden the base of those who know about it. And if we rewrite it and add more benefits, I mean, there are people who love POTA, but it's difficult for them to log those contacts connected to POTA and Logbook of the World. It's something we can use to bring more people in. Yes, it has to be part of it. Will be. Any other questions on that subject more accurately? Okay. The board meeting, Mark said that most of y'all are aware of some of the matters coming up for the board, but the board's got some very controversial proposals coming up, dealing with bylaw 46 and bylaw 42 and bylaw 18. I'm not going to go into those unless you want me to. Mark will have and be able to distribute to you substantial commentary that have been written by attorneys and others that discuss the benefits or lack thereof of these motions. They're serious, and they're going to alter the outlay or the layout for the league. The position that I'm going to take on behalf of Oklahoma and Texas is we're going to vote against them. It takes 10 votes to pass these. There may be 10 votes to pass them, unfortunately. They're pretty certain to be 5 votes against these proposals. We're one of the 5. We will vote and argue against 46, 42, and 18. And if you do want to ask questions about them, raise your hand and tell Mark, and we'll talk in more detail. Otherwise, I'm going to let Mark distribute all the information on them. You can make your own decision. Any questions on this, Mark, that you can see? I gather from silence there are no questions.
Nothing here, man, nothing here.
Okay. One of the programs that I am concerned about and that has been supported by the membership across the country is a program to get private land use restrictions removed from amateur radio. If you live in a developed subdivision, you have restrictions on how you may use your property. A universal restriction is the prohibition on installing antennas outside the house. Some subdivisions prohibit, we've been dealing with one lately, they prohibit amateur radio by name. Antennas in or out, doesn't matter. the league started this program back in 2014. The people running the original program developed a very bad bill that we had to withdraw from Congress in 2019. Since 2019, I've been principally the head of the legislative program. We have managed to obtain support from Congress for specific language that, if passed, will eliminate private land restrictions, period. Congress has done this before. In 1996, Congress passed the Communications Act of 1996, and it ordered the Federal Communications Commission to eliminate private land use restrictions on 1-meter satellite dishes, on towers and masts and antennas used for TV, and on towers and masts and antennas used for internet. They have broadened that since 1996 to permit not just reception, but retransmission. So you get internet by satellite if you want to. Those rules do not grant to any HOA or community association the right to prohibit at all. There are no rights granted to HOAs. Those rules have been rigorously or brutally enforced by the FCC ever since '96. But when those laws were passed, or those rules were passed or adopted, amateur radio was not included. If you want to ask why, it's because people at headquarters had the opportunity to participate and made the decision not to do so. History passed. So we've been running we've got 2 bills. If you look them up, and if you don't have a copy, I can get them to you. I'll get them to Mark and you can distribute them. The House bill is HR 4006. The Senate bill is S3690. Those bills are those numbers are the bills for the last Congress. A new Congress started in January 3rd. We'll have to refile the bill, so I don't know the numbers yet. But we have been working with 2 lobbying firms, DLA Piper and the Vogel Group, to find congressional support. And we have substantial now congressional support. This has been a 3-year program since the bills were initially filed in 2021. But it's not the only program we're looking for. For those of you who may have remembered being interested, there used to be a symbol rate limit, how fast you could transmit data. The FCC had been sitting on that request to change that rule, eliminate it for 9 years. Since they would not, we introduced a bill as part of the legislative program through Debbie Lesko out of Arizona that was going to order the FCC to eliminate the rule. After hearing with the FCC and a clear directive to the FCC that if they didn't agree to do it, the bill would be passed, the FCC agreed and removed the symbol rate. So that's one item we got done. There's a farm bill that passes every 5 years. The 2018 Farm Bill directed the Forest Service to collect cost or recover cost on communications facilities in national forest. Amateur radio, not so many, I think, Mark, in Oklahoma, but in western states and northern states, there are a lot of national forests with amateur radio repeater operations. And the national forest is so large, without those repeaters being on the national forest, you don't have repeater coverage. The Forest Service, in response to the 2018 bill, proposed a $1,400 fee per year for everyone. The league filed an objection. National broadcasters filed an objection. That was in December 2021. The Forest Service has not acted. They haven't agreed to waive the fees. They've just been waiting for the dust to settle. We have been working since 2021. We have 6 or 7 senators and a number of congressional reps who have agreed that that is detrimental to amateur radio. We did not file a bill because they asked us to let them incorporate the language to protect us into the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill was released in the summer of last year. There's a section called 8508. The bill, by the way, has never been filed. You can't see it. If you want a copy, I'll get one to Mark and he can distribute it to you, or we'll put it up on the website. But the Senate bill directs the FCC not to charge amateur radio administrative fees. The House version permits them not to charge. So we'll be working in the new session to get the language of the House bill changed to prohibit fees. The Senate bill was not introduced because in the middle of last summer, the world began to change. It went from a race where the Democrats would probably win the presidency to Trump would probably win. And when it became apparent to Congress that there might be a new administration and president, all major legislation stopped because no one knew what it's going to look like and who was going to be in power. One of the key sponsors for amateur radio and the elimination of those fees is Senator Boozman, the senator from Arkansas. He's one of our original sponsors on this. He is chairman of the Senate Agricultural Committee. Our supporters who are working to get this passed are also back on the Senate committee. Plus, we still have the House people. So we have the chairmanship of the Senate Ag Committee with a supporter. The chairmanship of the the Senate Committee. Chairmanship of the House Committee is Thompson. He supports amateur radio. So we are in a position after years of work to get bills passed that will protect amateur radio. But it's taken years to get to this point. The private land use bill has, I think at the moment, 19 sponsors in the House. It was filed by August 4th. I'm sorry. Okay, that was a question, just cough. It was filed by Drew Courtney out of Connecticut and August Pfluger out of Texas. A lot of people have been, congressmen have been waiting to see how the election turned out before they made a decision whether or not to sign on to the bill. I think we picked up 5 new supporters in the House just since the election. We have a congresswoman out of Florida who will, as soon as the bill is refiled, sign on to it. She was waiting to be appointed to the committee so she could support it on the committee. So the momentum in the House is on our side. But more importantly, equally importantly, we have supporters who are chairmen of key committees. The chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which is the committee which has to approve the bill, is Guthrie. He was one of our sponsors last year. He's now head of Energy and Commerce, which means we have supporters in a position to ensure the bill comes up for consideration. The chairman of the Senate Energy and Commerce Committee is Ted Cruz, who is a major supporter of ours. He has not put anything in writing yet, but we've had multiple meetings with him over the past year and a half. He is a key supporter. And if we can't get through the Senate, the bill will never pass. Senator Wicker is chairman of Armed Services Committee, and he's a member of the Senate Energy and Commerce Committee. The new senator from Utah is John Curtis. He in the past has said he would like to support the bill. We expect him to sign on. And in fact, we're going to be talking to him next week. In the House side, you have Congressman Tom Cole from Oklahoma, who is chairman of House Appropriations. One of our other sponsors, Rose DeLauro, out of Connecticut, is ranking member, which means she's effectively the co-lead with Cole. Why are those two, Cole and DeLauro, important? You can pass a bill as a standalone, walk on its own legs bill, or you can attach the bill to another bill, what's called a must-pass bill, kind of sliding it under the door. It's done all the time. Part of the plan is to, if we can't pass it as a standalone bill, any of these, we will attach them to other bills. 2 of the bills that you can attach to are an appropriations bill and the National Defense Reauthorization Act. In order to do any of that, you have to have the support of the Committee of Jurisdiction, which is House and Senate ENC. You have to, if it's a defense bill, you have to have support of the Armed Services Committee, which is Senator Wicker. And you have to support of the Appropriations Committee, which is Tom Cole and DeLauro. We almost got to where we wanted to go in the last session because we asked the Appropriations Committee to include language in an appropriations bill that would order the FCC to change the use restriction to grant us relief, to eliminate them. We couldn't get enough members to vote for it in the committee, but we did get enough members to agree to put language in the report. Every bill in Congress has a report. A lot of things appear in these reports that they couldn't get into bill, and those reports suggest requests to direct the targeted agency to do something. The House Appropriations Committee, keep in mind the House writes all appropriations bills, agreed with us to put language in the bill, in the report of the bill, that were recommended to the FCC that they use the OTAR, over-the-air reception device rules they adopted in '96 as a model for granting private land use restriction to amateur radio. That is a major accomplishment. Everyone in Congress wants something in a bill or in a report. For an organization our size to pull this off, it's like winning the lottery. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court issued an opinion called Loper-Bright. Prior to that decision, under what's known as the Chevron doctrine, federal agencies had the ability to create regulations on their own, which meant the FCC could follow the recommendation of the House Appropriation Committee and grant us relief. After Loper-Bright, they can't. In fact, the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House sent a letter to all federal agencies going, what part of this decision did you miss? You can't adopt regulations without statutory authority. So that puts us back. We're going to have to pass the bill one way or the other. But the fact we were able to get language into the report is a good foundation for getting language perhaps into the bill itself. So we are in a position after 6 years since 2019 and 3 years of hard work with 2 lobbying firms to reach the end and provide relief for amateur radio on multiple fronts. There's a high probability it's not going to happen. Each year for the past 3 years, in order to get this funded, and it's 6 figures worth of funding, I and the others on the legislative team have had to come before the board and fight to get the money. The Administration and Finance Committee recommends the budget. For the past 3 years, they were unwilling to recommend. They wouldn't even meet with us. The committee is headed by Jeff Ryan out of Rocky Mountain Division. They wouldn't meet with us. They wouldn't ask us before they planned the budget what we needed at Congress. We've managed to get the funding. This year, we have been told by Rick Roderick, the president, that the current proposal out of A&F is for less than half. They're cutting the budget by 66%, which means we cannot maintain the 2 lobbying firms. It means we have no money for traveling to DC to meet with folks. In order to change that, we're going to be back on the floor for a fight to get the funding. That shouldn't be necessary, but it's going to be. There are some people on the board who have absolutely opposed the legislative program. But what's worse is that there's a proposal, according to the president, Rick Roderick, a number of other people, and my conversation with Jeff Ryan, is that Jeff Ryan has a motion he's going to put on the floor to eliminate the existing legislative team that's been in Congress. That team is yours truly, Fred Hopengarden and David Siddell. So the current proposal, we haven't seen the motion. I talked to Ryan yesterday, but he clearly is on board, and others are with him to remove me as the head. And I've been head of the program for the past 6 years, to remove the other person. Hopengarden is co-author of the bill, and to limit the ability of our FCC counsel, David Siddell, to work on this. If you ask me what they're going to put in this place, I have no clear idea. I've asked, but I don't have a clear response yet. So after 3 years and a large amount of money to get us up to third base, a chance of getting both the Farm Bill approved with language to benefit us and the private land use bill passed, there's a high probability the program will die on either the 17th or the 18th of this month. That's what I know about the legislative program. So if you got any questions about it, go ask.
Question over there, Mark.
Okay, go ahead.
John, I was part of an organization years ago, and we had a lot of legislation issues as well. The group programmed free, with the language we needed, letters on the website that we could go out and each member of the organization could program and write in their name, information, and send it to every one of our congresspeople, our senators, our House, even to the president. And we literally could send those letters and say, hey, we need your support in this. And every single one could get that. Is that something you all have considered?
It's something we're doing on a limited basis already. At present, there's no good way to do it online at the website. After the cyber attack, email programs and a lot of other programs are not available to us. What we have been doing, I think, Mark, you've got some of these letters, and Mark Clayton has been going around the clubs in Oklahoma with 2 letters. One letter is a letter to be signed by the club. One is by individuals. Mark, I forget how many you've picked up, but you've got quite a few. But we've been working around the country to get letters from clubs as well as individuals. We can't do it on the web yet until we get it fixed. Part of the plan for the new year, if the program is funded, and I'll talk about outside funding in a minute, is to broaden that effort. Letters from constituents are very effective. A number of the sponsors that we have, before they committed to sponsor the bill, said, can you get me someone in my division to tell me they want this? And when we give them the letters, by give means not mailing them, not emailing. These letters are printed and hand delivered by the lobbyist. Hand delivery is very, very effective. The result so far, the limited effort we've been able to do, is that we picked up sponsors. Whether or not we can get something like you've talked about back up on the web depends on where the IT effort goes. We've been looking to record. I've been looking to outside vendors that could do that for us. We think we can do it outside. We hire a service to do it. They would collect the letters, give them to our lobbyists, and we'd be hand delivered. So that is on. It's being done on a limited basis. I think out of Delaware, we've got 200 or 300 letters there. Mark, you've done a good job in Oklahoma.
Yeah, we've got the web-based. We've also got a web-based piece that we can go to, that ok.arrl.org/HOA. It's the old bill numbers, so when it files, we'll get the new bill numbers.
Yeah,
That's very helpful.
talking about the bill numbers. Congress exists for 2 years, and then everything it starts over. If you have a bill that's pending that has not been passed, you have to refile it. So these bills will back up. If the legislative program continues, if the board doesn't kill it, the bills will be refiled. And those bills include the farm bills and the private land use bills. But no, that way it worked last time. It'll be done again. We just don't have a way to implement it at this point. If we have to hire an outside service, we'll do it. But we've been working through the clubs because it's easier to get a large group of letters, since that meant someone like Mark showing up and going, hi, send a letter. So it didn't rely upon having available on the web. But it's part of what we're planning for the next year. Talk about outside funding for a minute. The league has not sent out a funding request. Back when they were running ARPA, they did make funding requests, and it raised about $80,000, I think. There's been no effort out of the league to do that, with the inability to send out emails and a massive program. That's limited our ability. We're talking about doing it now if the program doesn't die. I have 2 clubs right now who have offered to donate money, probably $6,000 to $8,000. We haven't talked to a lot of other clubs, but there are clubs who are willing to donate money. There are individuals willing to donate money. There are some major donors that are on our list to talk to. We can fund the entire legislative program from donations. That's not difficult. We've got a political action committee in Texas called Texas HAMPAC. We used it to pass legislation in Texas. And raising money is not really difficult. People who want relief of whatever type will donate money, $1, $5, $10, adds up. So there has been an argument within the board, we can't afford this. That's nonsense. We can, the members will support it. But there's been no effort to do that at this point. But the mailing program will if the program survives, it will become a major effort, either through an outside vendor or we'll get it set up within the league with the repair of the network system. Any other questions?
Go ahead.
So to clarify, they're pulling any representation of amateur radio at Washington DC level, if I'm understanding correctly.
I'm sorry, I did not understand the question.
The proposal is to pull any representation for amateur radio from DC.
We've got to break up. Ask again. I'm sorry. It's just the sound breaking up. So.
Okay, if I'm understanding correctly, they're proposing to pull any representation of the members from Washington DC or at the state level. Am I correct?
If I understood the question, you're asking if there is a probability they're going to eliminate our ability to represent amateur radio at Congress. Is that your question?
Yes, and the follow-up to that being, if they do that, I mean, part of their marketing to maintain and gain membership is how they protect our rights at that level. So how are they proposing to do that if they pull all of our legislative representations?
I have no answer for how they intend to do it. The legislative program, if you don't live in HOA, that's not a big deal. If you have a repeater in National Forest, it is a big deal. But leave out West Gulf, because if I show up at a club meeting at Hamfest, there's always a question about what is known as the HOA bill. But in talking to directors in the past week, some of them have been to Hamfest or club meetings within the past month. One of them, out of the Hudson division, said there were only 2 questions regarding the league in the meeting he attended. One of them was, where's the HOA bill? It is extremely popular across the United States because it has major impact. 80% of all new housing developments come with land use restrictions that prohibit outdoor antennas. Now, those land use restrictions don't prohibit TV antennas, TV towers, satellite dishes. The 2005 the Freedom of Display of American Flag Act permits you to put up a flagpole in your yard. In fact, we passed a flagpole bill in Texas that the HOAs never figured out was an antenna bill. It gives you, but it is extremely popular. It is a benefit for the membership, for which no one has to write a check. It is something that will impact the ability of amateur radio to stay alive for the next 3 decades. At 80% currently of all new housing developments prohibiting outdoor antennas. Keep in mind, I won't put it up now because we'll eat up time, but what we give Congress is a photograph of all antennas that are permitted by law. Well, we show them are photographs of what's permitted under the over-the-air reception device rules that permit you to put up TV towers, mast, internet antennas, and 1-meter satellite dishes. And we also show them flagpoles that are legal. We point out to them there's a beautiful photograph of a flagpole in a Virginia subdivision owned by an amateur radio operator. It's a neat flagpole, guys. It's about 33 feet tall. The HOA didn't object to flagpole. The moment he told them it's a dual-use flagpole, it was also a vertical antenna, they threatened to sue him. Now they backed off because I ended up being one of the attorneys along with Fred Hopengarten, and we explained that bad things were going to happen because of the Freedom of Display of American Flag Act. But if you can put up a flagpole Why is it illegal for all of you sitting in the audience to make an antenna? Doesn't look any different, doesn't do anything different, doesn't kill the kids down the road, doesn't keep the grass from growing. You can't tell them apart. If you can put up a 1 meter satellite dish for TV anywhere without permission, in any color you want, as many as you want, why can't everyone in the audience use one of those dishes and convert it to UHF or anything else? One of the photographs we show Congress is of a dish network satellite dish that has been converted to a UHF antenna. And when they look at it, go, that's legal. It's okay. You can do that now. But, yes, but if it's being used for amateur radio, our members get sued. One of the other photographs is a 42-foot Roan 25 tower sitting in the backyard with a TV antenna on top. That particular antenna can be changed to work at 70 centimeters by changing, I think, 4 of the directors on. They go, well, that's legal? Yeah, you can put up a tower. You put up an antenna. By the way, that one's owned by him. And we point out that is legal, but if that is an amateur radio antenna, you will get sued. So what makes this program so easy to get through Congress is that we point out to them that all of you sitting in the audience are not asking for the law to be changed that would impose different antenna restrictions on the HOAs. You're asking for the right to change the label. Instead of that being a channel master, it can be an M2 antenna. Instead of a flagpole by itself, it can be a vertical flagpole or without a flag on it. Instead of 1 meter and diameter antennas, which can, by the way, could be a Yagi also. Put it up instead of just satellite dishes. And when they look at this, we had a congresswoman out of, I think, Illinois. She's been there for what, 30 years. She walked in on us when we were talking to her staff, asked us to explain what we're doing. We did. And when we got through, she said, why are we having to deal with this? She said, this is common sense. Why are we having to do this? It should be done already. That's the kind of reaction we're getting from Congress, but we only get that if we're able to go and talk to them. So it comes down to what the board decides to do. And we've got people like Ryan and Zogelbaum who want to get rid of either us who are leading the program or to cut the funding or both. So that's where we are. But if we're gone, I don't know how they're going to continue the program. If you cut the funding, it means we have fewer people in Congress working on it. So I can't tell you what they're thinking about. A lot of this, according to the president, is personal. It's nothing to do with the mayor. So I can't tell you where it goes after that. I can tell you it's not going to work. But that's all I can tell you. Any other questions? Objections? Do you really want to tell me what you really think of Mark?
Yes, yes, tell me.
Well, if he would put the gun away, we would.
Question, the statement was if you would put the gun away, we would. Anybody on the Zoom have a question? Unmute and feel free to ask. So it's Sunshine and Roses just left like 3 seconds into the production, is that right, John? Sunshine and Roses are gone.
Can't hear you, Mark.
Yeah, Sunshine and Roses are gone.
Talk to yourself.
He's not hearing you.
He's not hearing you.
Okay. Okay. Mike, quit.
Question.
You're talking back and forth. I'm not sure if you got a question or you want me to just leave now.
I don't, yeah, there we go. We got it back. Microphone, it goes to sleep apparently. It's tired of listening to me. So Sunshine and Roses left really quick during the presentation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Sunshine and Roses are not on the table.
Okay, good deal. Any questions locally in the building? Yes, Brent's got a question. We got another one here. Hold on, we grab this one first. Okay.
question is,
Yeah, Nancy,
Iron?
you are.
Okay, what's inspiring the board to be uninspired? I mean, really, you're battling two fronts. You're going, to our government and trying to protect, represent us, and then you have to fight the board additionally. What can change their minds? What's it going to take? Who's it going to take changing them? That's just a direct question.
Good question.
The question is, what will change the board's mind with regard to the legislative program?
Yeah, on everything. General attitude.
Oh, okay, general attitude. All right. We've got 15 directors and 15 vice directors. I think it's fair to say that everyone's there is interested in amateur radio. That we can't argue about. In any group, including the one sitting in the room I'm looking at, there are differences of opinion as to how things ought to be done. That's fair. You end up with groups that are in the majority, groups in the minority, and the group in the majority wants to push what it believes is correct. That's not a sin. It's not a sin at the board either. But the majority of the directors with whom I've spoken in the past week are indicated they are sympathetic with continuing the funding of the program. Keep in mind, nothing is final until it passes by the board vote. There is no motion before the board yet to fund it. The only recommendation out of the A&F committee led by Jeff Ryan is to fund $120,000, which is not enough, guys. Can I tell you that there is a majority that will disagree with that and provide, there will be a motion from the legislative committee that I'll put on for to fully fund the program. There's a chance they will do that. Again, the responses from talking to the board members, all except I think 4 right now, and that's because I haven't talked to the 4, is they're sympathetic to that. There has been a major push by Jeff, and I believe by Art Zuckelbaum, to eliminate all of us who are involved in the program. Can you suggest that that's because they believe the legislative program shouldn't exist? You could. But according to the president, a lot of this is personal, and that I can't fix. There are questions by the other board members that have been raised by these two. I have not encountered in talking to the other board members any personal animosity from them. Questions, which are fair. Animosity, no. So how do you change the attitude of the entire board? The only thing we can do is make the arguments that we've talked about today. Why this program is beneficial to everyone out in this audience and around the country. Why it will benefit the league long term, because if the league can do something of this size, this much impact, it's a good reason to remain a member or rejoin. And it keeps amateur radio alive, because if we eliminate the ability to operate, we're gone, guys. In terms of persuading those who are adamantly opposed to either me or the others on the committee, or opposed to spending the money, or opposed to the legislative program at all, I'm not holding out any hope of changing their minds. They're fixed. They've been fighting us for 3 years. I think they're going to continue to. Is it possible they've changed their mind? It's possible. I mean, I'm not saying everyone's evil. It's just we strongly disagree about where we're going. The personal matters I can't fix. As to the other proposals like 42, 46, and 18, for those who don't know, 42 and 46 are a code of conduct that is intended to bring everyone on the board, in my opinion, in line with a majority. This was done in 2017. A code of conduct was passed and it was used to stifle dissent. And it was used against a director known as Dick Norton out of Southwest Division. He was censored for, quote, violating the code of conduct. He didn't. But he managed to make enemies within the room. And that censorship cost us, the league, millions of dollars in donations. So we repealed that in 2019, January 2019. So a group of people are back trying to pass another code of conduct. There are those who believe we need a code of conduct that tells people like Mark Clayton and Mark Klein how they ought to act, because otherwise, God knows what those two are gonna do. No, I don't wanna know what they've been doing lately, just keep it off the table.
Now
But,
we got, running up to the time, we got one more question.
well, hang on, let me finish the answer to this question.
Yeah.
The 18 proposal is designed to make it very, very difficult for anyone to run for director or vice director. You'll have to read it, but a newly elected director that has been there before referred to it as the Incumbent Protection Act. Go read it, you'll understand it. You had a question, go ahead.
Go ahead, bring it, Frank.
Maybe a silly question, but is there some sort of agenda against amateur radio, or do the HOAs and people think that amateur radio antennas are ugly for some reason? They're just ignorance, basically.
The sound mark is not that I can pick up all the questions. If
Okay.
you use it, go ahead.
The question is there an agenda against amateur radio, or is it just the fact that antennas are ugly?
There's no agenda within the boardroom. Everybody in the room is actively engaged in amateur radio.
I think on HOA level, I think is what he's talking about.
Oh, okay. Yes. Big time. If you go to the lead organization is Community Associations Institute. They've got a operation in every state. They're well funded. They hire the best lobbyists. By the way, our lobbyists are tier 1, top 10 every year as on the rating scale. They hire the best. They are adamant, hell-bound to eliminate amateur radio. There is a state delegate in Virginia by the name of Holly Sebold. At the request of some of her constituents and based on the knowledge of the federal bill, she's already introduced, I think 2 days ago, a bill in the Virginia legislature that would eliminate private land use restrictions. And her office has been lit up by the state version of CAI. If you go to their website, you look at their written materials, they are adamant that amateur radio is a detriment to their subdivisions. The antennas are ugly, they reduce home values, they interfere with air rights, light rights, they're a physical threat. Their argument is, sorry, amateur radio operators, you don't need legislative help. Because if you come to us, we will listen to you. And we are there to address your concerns and help you reach the goals that are important to you in your life. I will not use the words that everyone would use to reply to that. They don't mean it. We got a bill, we passed a generator bill, got the bill out of committee in the Texas legislature. Our committee chairman made them sign off that they would support the bill. That stopped jacking with us. The moment we got out of committee and went to the floor for a vote, they showed up and broke their promise. Their rule is we will not agree to any changes in any private land use restrictions. If we agree to change one, we will have to change all. So they show up in Congress, they show up in state houses. You go, we are always willing to work with amateur radio. All they need to do is ask. And when you ask, you're not going to get it. We've got a ham down in, I think he's near Boca Chica, near Elon Musk operation. He's got a metal roof. He put up a folding antenna, vertical. So he's standing up on the roof, using the roof as part of the counterpoise. And at night, when no one can see it, he uses it. Daytime, he puts it down. They found out about it, and they've told him they're going to sue him. Not only that, but they won't let him put up a flagpole. There's a Texas law that says you can put up a flagpole in your front yard, backyard, side yard, period. There's a federal law that I mentioned that says that, and they're ignoring it. They're going to make him fight with them. They will not cooperate. They'll hold your hand. They'll give you a donut. I wouldn't eat it. It may be poisoned, but they won't cooperate. So they are dead set against amateur radio forever and without any limitation. If you want, and Mark, I have to ask, in 2016, when the ARPA bill came up for committee hearing in the House, They submitted written testimony, which is permitted. In it, they outline what they want. What they want in any legislation is the right to judge your request for an antenna on the criteria of, well, how many do you want? It can't be more than one. And it can't be more than this height. Maybe it needs to be in this color. And your neighbors have to find it acceptable. The magic word they use is aesthetics. It has to be acceptable visually or culturally to your neighbors. Which means if that's their standard, along with some other standards, there's no way on earth you can put up an antenna, period, anywhere. Roof, backyard, turning a lawn chair into an antenna. The example I gave you is that antenna in Virginia in the Toll Brothers subdivision. Folks, it's a 33-foot flagpole. They were okay with it until he said it's dual use. They're going to sue him. So yes, there's an absolute dedicated effort to block amateur radio from subdivisions with use restrictions. And the point about funding the program, these folks are well funded and they're really good. Their lobbyists are really good at what they're doing. So if we don't have a team against them, we lose. That's it.
Happy day. Are there any more questions out of the group here? I see no hands. John, I really appreciate you coming by and visiting with us. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you letting me come and take up your time. If you got questions, contact me. My information is up on the web. Any of the commentaries on some of these motions, Mark will have them. He can share them if you want to see them. So I didn't answer one question completely. Someone asked, what can you do to persuade the board to change its mind? You can contact the board. Obviously, I think I am on our side. You can email the other board members and ask them to A, do, or B, don't do. I will tell you that some of the board members will be offended. There are a couple board members who have said in an open meeting that I do not represent all the amateur radio operators in the United States. I have a fiduciary duty. I only represent my division, which means they are treating the league as 15 ham clubs. Connecticut law under which we operate says that every director represents the organization, which means they represent each of us. So if you send an email to a division director who's not West Gulf, some of them will be really, really pissed off. There have been some harsh discussions in small meetings of the board and online amongst the board about how dare that lowlife Stratton suggest that anyone write me. Those aren't my members. I don't want to hear from them. What do we do about Stratton? Well, you should have talked to my mother, guys. She drowned the wrong kid. But the serious answer is, if it is your organization, there used to be on the web until last year a line that said we are a membership-driven organization. So you have the right, you pay your money. You have the right to ask anyone to act in a manner you believe is in your interest. Even if you don't agree with everyone else, they don't agree with you. You have that right, although some are going to disagree with it. Is it effective? Does it work? I'll give you two examples. It does. In 2017, after they passed that code of conduct and went after directors, once it became known what they were doing, what they had done, the membership around the country lit up and inundated every director, all officers, with objections to that rule. The result was 4 board seats were flipped in the next election, and in 2019, those rules were withdrawn. A year ago, January of last year, 42 and 46 were proposed. The proponents of those motions withdrew them. They withdrew them because they didn't have 10 votes. 6 members of the board, based upon input from their members and others, said, we're not gonna vote for it. So they've taken a year to work on it. They've slicked it up a bit. So they're back trying to do it again. So those are 2 examples where you as members have had an impact. No guarantee if you send an email or a letter that people will listen. Like I said, some will be upset. But it's a membership organization. 48 or 49% of the operating revenue comes from each of us. That's your dues. So that's the, other than taking hostages, which you can do, that's the only way to impact what the league does. They may or may not listen. And yes, they'll be upset at the fact that I suggested you even consider it. The only other way to do it is to change the board, but you can't. Now you can get rid of me in a heartbeat. But in terms of the other 14 directors, the directors are elected from territorial divisions. And you can call your friends, you can donate money, well, you could donate money before bylaw 18 passes. But other than that, the board is every 3 years, 5 directors come up for election. So to change something is going to have to be direct contact with the directors and the officers. And again, not all the directors agree with go back killing the legislative program. I've had good conversations with most of the directors. They believe the legislative program is important to each of you and their members. They've just got to get comfortable with spending the money and that we can raise the money from the members. And then they're going to have to make a decision whether to follow the lead of people like Ryan to keep the team we've got in place or go do something else. Again, they're not bad people. They just, some of them just disagree. But the outcome is if they support policy not in the interest of all of you and me, that's not a good thing. We'll know by Saturday whether they're not going to support it. We've got a chance to keep the funding on whether or not they keep me and David and Fred. Don't know. We'll see. But you can contact them. You're entitled to do it.
Again, thank you a ton for showing up on a Saturday morning. Appreciate your time. And he is N5AUS. And N5AUS at N5AUS.com is an email. So if you want to get a hold of it, that'll do it. Again, thanks for coming by, John. And we'll take a 5-minute break and come on back in here. Thank you.
One last comment. If you want, my numbers are published. You want to call me, you can do that too. Again, thank everybody for letting me come and listen to me. We appreciate the help. And
Thanks,
Mark,
John.
all the leadership you've got in Oklahoma are doing a good job over there.
Thank you. We got a good crowd up here. Thanks.
Y'all take care. Bye.
Yeah.